Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video I'd like to share my English pronunciation progress within the last year that I have achieved thankfully to making YouTube programming videos. So we'll go over the milestone videos on this channel step by step in order to show you the evolution of my pronunciation and accent. And also at the very end of this video I'd like to show you the way how I practice my current pronunciation and accent in order to improve my videos even more. And by the way, I'm not a native speaker, if you would ever kind of think that that could have been true. So if you're excited, let's actually dive in. I've started making YouTube videos for about a year ago, and the very first of those didn't have any sound within them. So basically I just created a program that printed the text to the output, and that's kind of it. So I was really shy. I didn't want to speak because, you know, like, my native language is Russian, for those of you who's interested or have no idea about what is my native language actually. And, you know, like, I thought, like, I always felt like I can't really create content in Russian for some reason. I don't know, because probably of the audience. So I couldn't ever imagine the audience that would be listening to my Russian tutorials, because, well, I don't know, just that seemed to me like a complete disaster. So I wouldn't ever succeed if going that way. And even now I think that I was really right regarding that step. So at first I just started with creating a program that did output some code to the std out, and then I just captured my screen, and that's kind of it. So not much regarding English. So I just got a silent part. So let's move on. I just close this, and here is the very first video of me talking on YouTube. So here it is. Today's video is really special because I'd like to share with you with a recent project of mine. I've written an operating system, and here it is. It is called Brainfuck Operating System Shell, and basically this is a brainfuck interpreter, a bootable one. So let's start. And so on and so forth. So that was kind of the very first experience of me talking in public in English ever. So, well, something like that. But you know, like, this is not the worst example basically of how I started back in those days. So if you would see this kind of stuff, when I've well, in that time I couldn't yet to write code and talk in the same time. So first I just had to write some code, and then I started to talk, explaining what in particular does that code actually do. So here is the example of that pirate. First part of this video series on writing a bare minimum chess program in C. In this video series, I'm going to show how to write a chess program of about only 200, and not interesting from the chess strands perspective. That you can already imagine where particularly this one will actually go. Okay, and by the way, you know, like, when I was recording this sort of tutorials, I was really inspired by a guy who had a brilliant British accent, well, to my ears at least, and I really tried to sound like him. And when I showed this video and the video of that guy, well, at least my parents said, "Oh, come on, that's your video, man, come on. Isn't that your video?" And when I showed that to my friends, that was absolutely the same. So I'm just wondering, what do you guys think? So here is my voice, okay? So also this is used both in to parse the user input, and even more it's useful for the debugging purposes when you... Okay, and here is the source that I tried to mimic.
Hello and welcome to this first video in a series of programming videos on creating a chess engine in the C programming language.
Okay, and just one more time from my part, almost the same words.
Hi guys, welcome to the first part in this video series on writing a bare minimum chess program in C.
Okay, and one more time this one.
Hello and welcome to this first video in a series of programming videos on creating a chess engine in the C programming language.
Well, guys, you to judge, and if you consider these kinds of voices to be similar, please leave your commentaries, and if you don't consider them to be similar, I'll be happy to read your commentaries as well. I'm really thinking, what do you guys think? Did I really sound like Blue Fever software in my early chess videos or not? So please leave your commentaries. I'll be very excited reading them basically. So let's actually move on. So here is my very first blog video on this channel. So well, a little bit more fluent to my personal opinion, but well, you to judge basically. So here it is.
A week ago, and the particular backhand stuff I'm using now is Node.js for the server-side scripting using JavaScript and the Express framework. Well, I must say that I had some experience in JavaScript, not really in creating some front.
Here, by the way, I'm trying to mimic Blue Fever software as well, and also I was trying to sound like British, but without much success. Well, even though the sound was kind of deep in the throat, which is kind of natural for me, I don't know what reason. So now when I'm trying to sound like a Native American, it's really hard to put the sound just right into your mouth, closer to the lips. So, well, at that time I had no idea regarding the correct pronunciation. So in British English, you do not pronounce sounds like and you need to sound more like a long, prolonged sounds like horse, like I don't know, was, word. No, not the words, but words, water, like Jason Statham used to say, like water, brava. Cockney English, yeah. So I try to mimic that, but even now it's really hard because authentic English is extremely difficult to mimic. So you probably would sound really weird. And also later on I've realized that switching to American accent is better because it's kind of more clear to understand for non-English speaking guys. So that's actually one of the most reasons why I switched to American accent, and I'm trying to improve it as best as I can. So let's actually move on. Okay, so this is one of my recent blog videos. So here I'm already trying to switch to American accent, but from time to time I say the words like lost, fast, and so on with this deep ah, like in British, that I was actually practicing for quite a bit of time. And here I'm trying to say instead last, fast, and stuff like that, but still they are a bit too deep in the throat, not that close to the teeth in your mouth. So here is an example.
Whatever. If you want to be a freelancer or things like that, so if you just begin to explore this wide road of programming and technologies, all this web development, all this stuff, if you feel a little bit overwhelmed regarding all those amount of information available there in the internet, you would probably be interested to listen to this.
Okay, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how it sounded for about, well, when was it actually? The February the 3rd. So it's not really that long time ago. So it's kind of recent video here. And now here is an example of my pronunciation evolution in the tutorials. So here is one of my recent tutorials, Python request crash course in regards to web scraping. So here it is.
Hello guys, in this video I'm going to cover the very basics of Python request library in regards to web scraping purposes. But before we start, let me tell you a couple of words regarding the environment I'm working on. So here I've created an experimental Python development environment for you guys to be able to follow this tutorial completely in browser.
And in order to say this in a correct way, I spent numerous tries and numerous unsuccessful attempts. So I've been practicing as follows: like, I've created this experimental Python development. I've created this experimental Python development environment for you guys being able to follow this. I've created this experimental Python development environment for you guys being able to follow this tutorial completely. Oh fuck, I said tutorial instead of tutorial. British is tutorial and American is tutorial. So let's give it another try. Okay. I've created this I've created this experimental Python development environment for you guys to being able to, not to being able, but being able. I've created this experimental Python development environment. I've created this experimental Python development environment for you guys being able to follow this tutorial. Again, tutorial. I've created this and so far and so on. So, guys, it's a really tough job basically to practice on your pronunciation. And I personally spent kind of a lot of time on doing this. So just to bear that in mind, basically. And also, the very last thing is actually how I try. When you really want to sound better, it's the best way of doing that is actually to learn from the natives. But as far as I've never been to America, and I've never been away from Ukraine ever, basically. So I've never been to English-speaking countries, and the only experience I have regarding English conversations is just via Skype, probably with my clients from Upwork, and not all of them are native English speakers as well. So I had a French client that I've been interacting with in English, but that's not kind of the case that you really would like to learn from. So once I had a native British speaker that was incredibly hard to understand, to be honest. Understanding Americans at some point is far easier compared to British, but also it depends on the human being itself. So if man pronounces the words correctly and he just sounds good himself, well, in that case that's pretty nice. But if he just doesn't sound that great, it's incredibly hard to understand. Also I've started watching movies in original language, like in English, and lately I was watching Fast and Furious, the part 6 apparently, or whatever, I don't remember, but I can clearly understand what Paul Walker says. Paul Walker, not Paul Walker, it's not British, okay, sorry guys. And it was extremely difficult to understand what actually Vin Diesel says. So he's like, family. That's the only way I understand that Vin Diesel ever said it. It's just a family, and it's really so brutal. So I don't know, family was probably the only word that I understood from Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious. So that's kind of it. And let me just show you this example. So one of my favorite YouTube programming bloggers is Traverse Media. I'm learning really a lot from him. So, by the way, I got a paid programming job as a freelancer at Upwork thanks to following his tutorials. So what I'm trying to do is, in many respects, just trying to mimic what he does. But Traverse Media covers the wide range of topics regarding web development and technologies, while I'm trying to focus more on web scraping techniques. Trying not to duplicate the stuff, but still, just want to tell you that this guy is the source, the great source of my inspiration regarding how to make programming videos, basically. Even though I'm trying to follow my own way and doing things on my own, but still, I consider him to be kind of my mentor. And lately, recently, I've also realized that I really like how he sounds in his videos. So I'm trying, from now on, I'm trying to mimic his voice. And actually, here is the bonus that I promised you at the very beginning of this video, guys. So let me just show you how CodeMonkey King actually does improve his English pronunciation. So that's very simple. You just need to open the video, and then you click play, and then you repeat steps. So here is how it goes, basically. Okay, so make the sound better. Okay, and here we go.
Alright guys, in this video we're going to create a RESTful API.
Alright guys, in this video we're going to create a RESTful API
using Flask, which is a Python web framework.
Using Flask, which is a Python web framework.
And you basically have two big frameworks for Python.
And basically you have two big frameworks for Python.
Django, which is very high level.
Django, which is very high level, opinionated.
And then Flask, which pretty much allows you to do things however you want.
And then Flask that pretty much allows you to do things however you want.
And they're both great frameworks.
They're both great frameworks.
Just very different.
But just very different.
And I do have a full Flask series.
By the way, guys, I have a full Flask series on my channel as well, so please feel free to check out my Flask tutorials in the playlist section. So they're kind of really interesting projects there involving jQuery data tables and jQuery in general as a front-end framework. The the minimalist one, and so on. So, by the way, I'm proficient at Flask. That's why I'm covering this in my YouTube video tutorials, just like Trevor's Media does. Okay.
On my YouTube channel, if you want to build like a regular web app with.
On my YouTube channel, if you want build a regular web app.
Flask, and kind of go over the fundamentals and stuff.
Flask and kind of go over the fundamentals and stuff
like that.
Like that.
Now, in addition to Flask, we're going to be using a couple extra packages to
now in addition to Flask, we're going to be using a couple of extra packages
help us build a RESTful API. We're going to use SQL Alchemy, which is an object relational mapper.
We're going to use SQL Alchemy, which is an object relational mapper.
So it basically is a layer that allows us to.
So basically, it's the layer that allows us to
interact with the database
interact with the database
without having to write manual SQL.
Without need to write manual SQL code.
Queries and stuff like that. It's similar.
Queries and stuff like that, and similarly
to like SQLize. Like Mongoose for
MongoDB.
Just an abstraction layer for our data.
Just an abstraction layer for a database.
Really. And then we're using Marshmallow for.
And then we use Marshmallow for
serialization. Basically, we just bring it in. We pass it into our schema.
We're passing it to our schema.
And it serializes and deserializes. Our objects. All right, so we're going to use Postman to.
We're going to use Postman
to make requests
to our API, probably.
To our API and get the data back and stuff like that.
And get the data back and stuff like that. Okay, guys. So I hope you've got the concept here. So let me just close this nice tutorial by Trevor's Media. So that's kind of how I improve my own pronunciation in order to sound better in my videos. So, well, probably this is it for this video. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to create some entertaining videos like this one, not only the programming tutorials, even though I'm planning a big series regarding Python scraping framework in the near future, so feel free to check that out when it comes as well. Okay, so this is it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this. Probably you didn't learn much of it, but still, I hope you at least got some fun from watching this video. So until next time, and take care.